Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Ankush here from Alif Consulting. Welcome in our Azure Weekly Update video. In this video, we will be going to talk about all of these updates which has been released by Microsoft in last week for Azure Cloud, right? So let's quickly jump into the deep dive and understand what are these uh, Azure updates are and where they will be going to give us the more enhancements and the feature update into the Azure Cloud services. So the first update which we have is for Azure Storage Access Tier. Now, as we know that Azure Storage Access Tier is something which is available for blob storage, but now it do have available with the append blob and page blob with blob type of conversions. So as we know, like Azure storage offer different access tiers so that you can store your blob data into the most cost effective manner, right? So tier are like hot tier, cold tier, and the archive tier, where the three tiers are available, right? So now we have a more capabilities where the Azure storage access tier now support the blob natively. Earlier this was something which was not there for append blob and paste blob, right? So it was only the blob where we can apply all of these tier, but now we have a capability to apply the access tier on append blob and page blobs also. So this means, right, what that means is, like, this means is like you can take the advantage of the access tier to these blobs. Now one important thing which you need to keep in mind, you cannot apply the access tier directly on the append blob and page blob, right? So what you need to do, you need to convert them to the blob by changing changing the type, and then from there you can apply all of your access there, right? And the conversations, right, the conversion and the tiering can be done by using the PowerShell, CLI, and agent copy, and as well as can directly done from the Azure portal as well. So this is where you can do apply the access tier to your append blob and page blob by changing them into the blob to do the safe costing, right? And later on, when you need those data back, you can move them to the host tier, and then you can convert them to the append blob or page blobs for your restoration task. The next update which we have is for Azure Red Hat OpenShift, which is now available for Azure Government Cloud. When I say the Azure Government Cloud, it's specifically we are talking about the government cloud which is available in US region right now. Where Microsoft have created a dedicated data centers for only for running the government the US government or government workloads in the US. So as we know, Red Hat OpenShift provide high available, fully managed OpenShift cluster on demand, monitored and operated jointly by Microsoft and Red Hat. With this release, we are combining the world-class Azure infrastructure with the leading enterprise Kubernetes platform as a jointly operated and supported services for Azure government customer to run their containerized workload in production. Kubernetes is the core of Red Hat OpenShift, right? And the OpenShift bring added value features to complement the Kubernetes, make it a turnkey container platform as a service with significant improvement developer and operate experience, right? So it's simple. Like earlier, this Red Hat OpenShift, which is a kind of containerization environment, is something not there for the Azure government customer. Azure government customer does not was not having any capability to run their containerized application, but now they have, and they can take the advantage of Red Hat OpenShift to run their container or the Kubernetes cluster. The next update which we have is for Azure Web. Azure Web PubSub a premium tier is now generally available. As we know, PubSub make it easy for us to add a real-time two-way communication to our web and mobile app without worrying about the infrastructure. This plan provides the greater resiliency, scalability, and the flexibility by enabling the key enterprise gate features such as availability zone support, auto scaling capabilities, SLA of 99.95%, and custom domain support. So all of these four capabilities which is there with the Azure Web Sub, PubSub premium tier, and all of these features would be available and will allow you to do the more flexibility to run the application. The next update which we have is again for US government region. Now the US government region for Azure is have a TPM uh, introduced, which is also known as a trusted launch for Azure VM. With this one, all the regions basically which is in a US government, like a US Gov Virginia, US Gov Horizon, US government Texas, US DDoS, DoD East, US DoD Central have the trusted launch for Azure VM capabilities. Now, what are the benefits basically which we will be going to get this trusted launch for Azure VM? With this one, it's allow us to boost the security posture of the Azure virtual machine in Azure by having the following ways: improve the foundational security of your virtual machine by booting to a defined and trusted state, reduce the persistent malware such as a rootkit that are there and they can run with the same kernel mode privilege as the operating system. They in fact enable credential guard, right? Uh, and this allows and protect David domain credentials backed by a secure root and virtualization based security, and the VTPM prerequisite for domain controller address critical DoD STIG requirement to enable virtualized based security for your workload, gain continuous insights into your virtual machine for health state and boot chain integrity, plus remediate attachments failure by Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Strengthen your Windows 11 virtual machine with uh, WEFI secure boot and VTPM to prevent the lower layer security malware. Right. So these are the new state of security, or new way of the implementing the security for your VMs, which is running in Azure government cloud regions. Another update which we have is for Azure Digital Twins now have available in West US 3, Qatar, Japan, and the Korea region, right? So Azure Digital Twin enable us to create the digital representations of a real world thing, place, business, processes, and the people. Gain insights that help you to drive a better product, optimize the operations and the cost, and create the breakthrough customer experience. So this is all about the Azure Digital Twin. Now I have a capability extended to another regions like West US 3, Qatar, Japan, and Korea. Another update which is very important in terms of the app modernization and the containerizations. We have two new pricing tiers introduced into the Kubernetes, right? These pricing tiers have nothing to do with the SLA uptime, which is a different feature in the AKS, which provide you the 99.99% SLA for your Kubernetes cluster if you have a SLA uptime enabled for your cluster, right? To a better communication, the benefits and use case of two control plane management options today, which Azure Kubernetes is introducing, is a free tier and the standard tier. Previously, few customer is aware of the uptime SLA support, and many did not have the uptime SLA feature enabled for the critical workloads. That's true. I have a few customer in mind where they have just created a customer, but they haven't enabled the uptime SLA, and that's where they got some issues because there was some issues in the Azure services, and Microsoft denied with the SLAs because they haven't selected the uptime SLA for their clusters, right? So we have our two tiers now available for Azure Kubernetes services. With standard tier, we Microsoft hopes to increase the customer awareness and allow customer to gain the full benefit of the standard tier for the production workload to minimize the disturbance. Now, what are the major difference in between both of these tiers? So the free tier is recommended for the cluster with less than 10 nodes and for experimenting, learning, and simple testing purpose. With standard tier is only included with the uptime SLA, right? Which is there, right? So free tier does not have the uptime SLA, but the standard tier include the uptime SLA. It's my bad. But it's also include the additional features such as a support of up to 5,000 nodes per cluster and the API server auto scaling. So these are the new things which has been there, which is including uptime SLA for only for the standard tier only. So the free tier is still don't have the uptime SLA. If you are using the free tier, you need to have a separately enable the uptime SLA and you need to pay a separate cost for that. The next update which we have is for Azure Functions support for Node.js 18. Now Azure function support for Node.js 18.x is now generally available. 18x is the latest long-term support LTS release for the Node.js runtime. Now we have a capabilities like if we have Azure functions and we want to run with Node.js 18.x version, we can use that with our and we can use that and we can create a function on the Azure function and run it on it, right? Next update, which is very important in terms of doing the application testing. Now we have Microsoft load testing feature generally available. Uh, the load testing is a fully managed load testing services that enable us to generate the high scale loads, gain the actionable insight, and ensure the resiliency of our application and the services. The service simulate the traffic for your application regardless of where they are hosted. Developer, testers, and the quality insurance engineers can use it to optimize the application performance, scalability, and the capacity. Now you need to keep it, you need to think about it, right? So this is a kind of I can say a very important service the way Microsoft have released it, because if you don't have these kind of services, right? It was there with the DevOps, I think. The DevOps have this capability where you can go ahead and run your load testing on your application, but this is the independent, right? Regardless of your endpoint, either it's a public endpoint or either it's the private endpoint, the load testing can be run on the any of the application. It can give you the insight, right? It can give you the overall insight about the resiliency, performance, capacity, scalability, right? And then accordingly you can basically give and do the enhancement inside your application, right? So this is what Microsoft Azure load testing service do. Well, that's it in this video. I hope you like this video. If you like, please click on like and subscribe for more upcoming videos, and feel free to reach us if you have any questions. Thank you.